Our region's contentious history lies at the heart of a new book called The Big Divide, written by a pair of Kansas City authors, Diane Eikhoff and Aaron Barnhart. If that name sounds familiar, you may recall him as the Star's TV critic for many years. He's also a history buff who met our own Angie Simmons some 15 years ago while he was portraying the Reverend Thomas Johnson at Constitution Hall in Lecompton. That's just one of the sites Aaron and Diane feature in the book, whose purpose is to help us get out and do some discovering of our own.
You're both writers. You've been writing books on history solo. You've been writing solo. How did you go about kind of co-writing it?
Well, Aaron was my driver. I don't drive, and so he accompanied me throughout Kansas, and we did a lot of talking about Kansas early history and realized it was an underserved story, and you can't do Kansas for long without running into Missouri and realizing what was going on this border. Actually, we started out as many years ago. We met through the Civil War.
As in the Ken Burns film.
Aaron did not own a TV.
Don't tell anybody that. But I would go over to her house and we'd watch. It was Monday night, so they were re-airing it at that time, and she'd make dinner and we'd watch it together. Another thing that we also realized very early on was when we would visit sites in Missouri, we would get a very different interpretation of events than historic sites in Kansas.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so this is the divide in our book title. Mm-hmm. The fact that if you grew up in Kansas, Jim Lane and John Brown were heroes, and Quantrill was the devil. If you were in Missouri, the Union Army was the devil for driving 20,000 people out of 4 western Missouri counties under Order Number 11. But the reason we call the book The Big Divide is that we actually think to visitors from outside the area, as well as to people who are exploring the rich history of this region, you get more out of it if you have both stories together.
How did you decide to organize the book? Because it is organized differently than, say, maybe just your traditional, like, start at point A and go, although there are some nice driving tours.
I think because I'm a historian, I think about stories, and so just kind of going from one place to another geographically didn't really make sense. So I decided, and Aaron concurred, that it would be an interesting change of pace to organize the book chronologically and to give a mini history of the border region, which helps to put everything into context for the reader.
Yeah, you got to understand the Mid-Atlantic region with the Eastern Theater and the Civil War, those are the most storied battles, but they're also the most written about battles. Now, if you go and visit the actual interpreted battle sites, they vary. So yes, there's Gettysburg, which is a spectacular $100 million visitor center and all that. But then you go to a site like Monocacy, and it's just kind of there. I think we counted there 9 battlefield sites, Civil War battlefield sites in the Missouri-Kansas border region, and they can hold their own. And if you're looking around for a guide that really makes you understand the history that you're stepping on when you arrive at that battlefield or arrive at that historic site or walk into that museum, it's slim pickings. So we knew that once we got this book into people's hands, they would immediately put it to the use for which it was intended.
And you uncovered some gems. Were there any sites in here that you were like, people need to know about this site? This is one of those that folks don't think to go travel to, but that it's an amazing place to go.
Well, we almost called our 10th Civil War battlefield because a lot of people now understand this was where the Civil War began. If we talk about the breakdown of political compromise and the beginning of people picking up guns and shooting at each other, that Civil War started in Blackjack, the battlefield just outside of Baldwin City, which has, the land was acquired about 12 years ago, and a small group of volunteers have assiduously put that restored a lot of it into prairie, and they're restoring the site. But more importantly, they just take you to where John Brown and his band of 30 farmers, this is post-Potawatomi Massacre, basically forced the surrender of an equally small band of federal troops, which at that point were supporting the pro-slavery Democratic administration in Washington. So for me, that's a great bit of history you don't get anywhere else. And then the other is, of course, right across the state line in Missouri, and that's Island Mound, another place where the border region makes unprecedented history when it's the first time African American soldiers anywhere are sent to fight and die for their freedom.
And coincidentally, both of those sites have been named national landmarks
Yeah.
in the last year, in the fall of last year.
Yeah.
Both of them were given that honor. So they are very significant sites, not just regionally, but nationally.
But that's the thing. This history is catching up. That's the thing. This is trending history, if you can say such a thing.
Why not?
Yeah, that's right. These are historic sites whose historic value was not recognized until recently, because again, the Western theater of the Civil War has always been downplayed. Now people understand that the worst guerrilla violence anywhere in the Civil War was fought here. People understand that the spark was lit among the Missouri-Kansas border. And in many ways, the post-Civil War battle over who controls the message began here when Jesse James refused to accept the outcome of the Civil War and began his reign of terror up and down, protected by a lot of people who felt the same way he did about the Union. There's a big idea in this book, and it's not our idea, it's an idea other people have been working on. And the idea is that the Missouri-Kansas border region is the most consequential border in American history.
And I think it may have taken two outsiders. Aaron's from Montana originally. I'm from Minnesota, and we met in Chicago. So I think it might have taken two outsiders to really see this as a big story. Almost from the beginning, we realized something was going on here. When we moved here, we said, what's all this?
I think what's great about this, it's not just about history. We hear a lot about the natural history and other things that, it's not just about the Big Divide, but also exploring these communities. And so,
absolutely, and it's exploring other eras in history as well. I mean, we start with the land and all the particular qualities of this land, which was basically prairie. There's a lot of early Indian history, American Indian history in this region.
Because you can't understand what happens later with the border wars unless you understand that Kansas, white settlement was held out for 33 years. Whites weren't allowed to settle. That's why they jumped on the Oregon Trail and the California Trail, because they couldn't settle in Kansas. And so by the time it's finally opened up to white settlement with the Kansas-Nebraska Act, the type of person who wants to settle in Kansas is completely different from the person who's settling in Missouri, and that's where the seeds of
colors everything.
It does.
Yes, and then on the other end of things, there are all these sites that honor things that happened after the Civil War and even into the 20th century. Places like Brown v. Board of Education, which is really an outgrowth of the struggle for civil rights, of course, in Topeka, and that's a fantastic museum.
Historic sites are not theme parks, right? They're run by volunteers. They're not programmed to have the exact same experience whether you show up at 9 a.m. or 5 p.m.
Exactly.
These are labors of love in many cases. Even folks who are working for the federal government, they work for low pay. They're extremely dedicated to their site and to the history of their site and to telling the story of their site. We want to honor those people, and one way we feel we can do that is to get people to understand the importance of the site and how to get there.
Well, people should just get out. They should go and get the book. So where should they go? I mean, I know I got mine at the Liberty Jail off the square in Liberty, so I know that you can get them at the sites.
Yes.
But where else? How can people pick up a copy of the book?
Our website, we've got a couple places. One, obviously, since we're everywhere, you can get us on Amazon or your favorite online bookseller, and we have an ebook there as well. But if you like to shop locally, and we are, after all, doing this on The Local Show.
Right, I would encourage that.
I would encourage people to go to our website, thebigdivide.com/stores. And that has a list of all of our partner vendors who sell the Big Divide in the gift shop. And of course, by buying it there, you're supporting local preservation and local enterprise.
And then you can stop and see the site
and
while
see
you're
the
there,
sites.
while you're there, and get it, and then start your journey, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Diane Eickhoff and Aaron Barnhart, for co-authors of The Big Divide. Thanks for joining us.
Our pleasure.